All right. So we've got Brandon Reed.
Right.
Yeah. Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City.
Yeah, you're still there.
That's the place.
Oh, man. And
Yeah.
yeah, so we first met Brandon, and Brandon's I like Brandon. He came to our conference. Now you landscape, is it fair to say? I mean, I know you do rooftops now, but you were a landscape,
Yeah.
general focus, and we met up at a
Yeah.
workshop. There was about 20 of us in San Francisco. We rented this old San Francisco villa, and Brandon was in there, and I don't think we've kind of emailed a few times, haven't we? But Brandon's done really well, and he's really good at what he does. And actually, the reason you came up the other day was because an architect who'd come into our sixth program. He said he was from Salt Lake City, and I said, "Oh, Brandon Reed." He said, "Oh yeah, I know him. He's the reason I'm here." I said, "Really?"
Ah,
He
yeah.
said, "He's the reason." I said, "Oh yeah, he's Brandon. We did some stuff with him," and he said, "Yeah." He said he's the best landscape, rooftop landscape guy in the US. I said, that's a
Yeah.
good
I think I know who
recommendation.
you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I know who you're talking about now
So I
because I
said, all
think I
right,
had a meeting with him. Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, so it's good to get.
Oh, go ahead.
So yeah, well, that's basically it. So it's been a while. It's been a few years since we connected. But in fact, the last time I saw you was in the airport at Salt Lake City.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
And
And that was
actually,
once
and
again.
well, that's interesting because one of the things. Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
Brandon, I said I was stopping over for a few hours in Salt Lake City, and so Brandon said, "Oh, do you mind if I get in my car and come and have a chat to you to keep you company and pick your brains for a couple of hours?" I said,
Yeah.
"No, that'd be great." And but that type of thirst for, you know, motivation to want to do better, and I'm not surprised you're successful. So
Yeah.
anyway, give us the
Yeah.
rundown. Or give us the rundown on San Francisco, where you were at, and what you pulled out
Yeah.
of it, and then what you've done since then, because it's good.
Well, let me just say real quick, you guys are awesome. So you guys have helped me a ton over the years. I was involved for a few years with you guys directly, and that was pivotal in kind of shaping our expertise because that San Francisco meeting, and I have to say those meetups are probably the most beneficial for me versus any calls we ever had, anything like that. But just like getting in the room with people,
Right.
having you guys kind of help us and guide us and all that in these conversations was awesome. But I do recall us being at a round table. And first off, I thought, hey, I'm the only landscape architect
It's,
amongst this is all my future
I,
clients. So I thought, hey, maybe there's some things that could happen here as well.
he's like a fox in
But I
the
was like, sweet.
chicken coop, weren't you?
Exactly, exactly. But I can't remember the exact reason why we were at what we were discussing at the round table, but I started asking or talking about rooftop amenities or rooftop gardens or something. And you said, hey, hold up, because the architects were getting all fired up about it in a good way. They were just like, oh, we don't have any resources for that. If we had this, they were just identifying all these problems right off the bat. And you were like, are you recording this? Because if you're not, you need to stop this conversation right now, hit record, and make sure you get this on,
Yeah.
all recorded and look back because this is gold. And anyway, so yeah, they just kind of like, I think really that conversation really, I think, solidified that we should go after this. We should look more into it. I already had a good feeling about it. It was like, my clients here are saying they would have a need, they would eat this stuff up.
Yes.
So it was like the
That's it.
spark. And then it
Well,
was
that's
that
it.
same
And I
conference, I
think
think.
probably what we were discussing, sorry, what we were discussing was
No,
probably specializing and finding a hot niche. And it
it
became
had to have been something
and
like
it
that.
became pretty apparent pretty quickly as soon as you started talking about rooftop. The conversation started to explode, with your ideal target market, which is architects.
Mm-hmm.
The conversation started to explode, and that was a big clue that this is a real potential hot niche.
It was. And then that same airport conversation was from that same trip. I believe you were stopping over into Salt Lake and you're like, hey, I'll be in the area if you want to if you can come down, we can have, further conversation or whatever. So I gleaned a little bit more from that conversation, another little recording or whatever. And yeah, it was just pivotal to kind of where we are now, I guess. So it's kind of cool that we can be here 5-6 years later and talk about it.
That's great. That's great. So presumably before that, you were doing rooftop, obviously, but you were doing a lot of other stuff as well. You're a generalist.
Yeah. So
landscape.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. We're going to be 10 years old this year. Loft 6-4 will be on February 14th, which is Valentine's Day, as everyone knows. So I want to say we kind of engaged with you guys back in like 2014. So this would have been 2014, 2015. So we were just a couple years old in our business, trying to figure out who we were and who we are. Yeah. And so, yeah, it was my philosophy was just stay in business. So cast a wide net, take whatever projects come in, keep the money flowing so we can figure it out as we go. And then, yeah, from that conversation though, it turned into a generalist landscape architect to a more refined to rooftop amenities has just been kind of our thing over the last few years, to where now I'd say I was just, what's your latest program that you're doing? It's not Super 6. You always have cool, clever names. Yes, it's one
special ops.
It just came through on my email. Actually, I just saw it and I thought, basically, like where you can basically define your niche and you can be working with it was the quadrant you break out and you're like you want to be in the top right, and where you get the right fit clients, you're getting the high fees and best clients. That's honestly where I feel like we are right now. Yeah, right. Is we've been getting those types of clients.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, and now we have a reputation for rooftop amenities.
Cool. And presumably you're charging a premium for that, and you're getting called in. Well, tell us the benefits of when you pick a hot niche and you manage to position yourself. So we'll do that. We'll talk about what are the benefits of nailing it and getting to Sunshine Island, and then tell us some of the key steps that you did to get there. So
yeah,
when you've nailed it, and you, I don't know, maybe you're being called in on jobs, maybe you're charging higher fees, maybe you're working with a different type of project, presumably. What's life like when you're in Sunshine Island as a landscape architect specializing in rooftop?
It's
compared
so funny
to
because most people outside. Yeah, compared to before. So before it was commoditized. You go into a room, every time I put a proposal out, the feeling was, oh crap, they're going to beat us up. Right. And the fees already weren't that high anyway. But it was like, I already knew when I put out a proposal, they're going to call back and say, can you sharpen your pencil? And we were kind of prepared for that, So we would invariably sharpen our pencil. We got okay fees. But then gradually with our messaging being more dialed in, with our social media kind of dialed up, starting to really get that message honed to where we're hopefully solving problems within this rooftop amenities focus. What we realized is, wow, there's a real need for this. And also there's huge value. Like you also said, I think pick a niche that the riches can be in the niches, right? But there are some niches that maybe aren't that great, that you might think I'm really great at this, but then there's no money in it. With rooftop amenities, there's money. There's so much value. I still feel like we're leaving money on the table, and we're probably getting anywhere from 3 to 5x our fees of what we used to get for 5,000, 20,000 square feet. It's a lot more work. It is more complex. I think that's probably what keeps a lot of landscape architects from specializing in it. But man, once you kind of get the value,
that's what keeps them out.
It is,
you do want barriers to entry. And the barrier, probably, I'm guessing from what you've said, the barrier to entry is it's a bit of a specialist beast. And unless you know what you're doing, there's a lot of things that can probably go wrong. That's the barrier to entry. It's a bit scary, and you're dealing with developers and all that sort of stuff. But when you specialize, and you said something else that was key, and that was we can actually, because we specialize and we know it really well now, it's not just about picking a high value niche and putting your prices up. It's about picking a high value niche and making yourself really valuable within that niche, which is a key distinction. It's not just go in there and charge higher fees. It's go in, find the problems in that high value niche, understand it really well, and then solve those problems and add like really good value and put your fees up. But it's not just go in there and do the same old thing. You know, you want to be the most valuable person in that niche, but it sounds like that's exactly what you've done. You've gone in, you've been specific, you've added huge amounts of value. You know how to solve the problems they've got, and you know all the fish hooks along the way that you can get caught at. So what were some of 3 or 4 or 5 key things that you put in place that allowed you to move from Mr. Generalist landscape to Mr. number 1 in the USA for rooftops, according to your ideal target market? How good's that?
Well, you know, it's funny. I used to think, just to backtrack on that, so I used to think our positioning used to be we help architects and developers create immersive rooftop amenities for resorts, hotels, and apartments. And now we actually refined it last year to where we said, you know what, the decision makers really are the developers. Right. They're the ones that actually can allocate and say, we'll give you a higher fee, because the architect has to go sell that to the developer usually. So we now are just saying we help urban multifamily real estate developers. So we've refined our niche even further down to say, let's get in front of the developers as the first, you know, that would be our first priority, because then they're already authorized, the decision makers, to say, okay, fees higher, but we're going to go. The architect doesn't have to take it up the chain and try and convince them. So it's one less person that's getting in the way. And then if we contract with them, they're paying us directly. And I would say, I guess back to your question, what's really what you guys have taught, honestly, and I'm obviously, you're not paying me to say this, but what you guys are doing has huge ramifications on people if they actually apply it, or even just the concepts that you're sharing, which I would say help me kind of guide me to the point where I'm like, okay, I already knew marketing was important, but it was then, how do I craft the message? The monkey's fist idea of having something that's some kind of problem solver, something that's high value that a client might want. So I tried to do that myself, didn't work out. And then I actually hired, because of Business of Architecture, C-Level Media at the time. He was on there talking, I specialize with architects and in writing blogs and creating content. So I hired him. And for a year, that's all we did was he helped us put out one blog every week about rooftop amenities. We just decided, let's go down this road a couple of years, see what happens. To the point where on Facebook, my friends and family would say, is this all you talk about is rooftop amenities? Like, I want to see some personal posts and things. And I was like, well, this is all I was just using it for business, but people got the point. They're like, even architects, I had some people call up and say, man, you're putting out way too much content. Like, maybe just send an email once a month instead of once a week, So they really helped us really, I guess, get that rooftop amenities idea into people's minds to say, these guys do rooftop amenities. And then it took years after that. We went through, we're now kind of have taken marketing in-house and write all of our own stuff, because we realized it's kind of come full circle now, but now it's back in our own voice. And that was the biggest struggle we had. So now we have like the look and feel, we have cohesiveness with the messaging, and we've just maintained the consistency of the marketing over time, that messaging. But I feel like now we're sharing insights that are really valuable, more than just putting out a blog post. Right. But we had to start somewhere, right? So those few things, and then just dialing in our messaging and website so everything's cohesive along. So any blog post we put out, when someone goes to our website, they see, oh my gosh, like, yeah, there's no doubt. These guys are clearly saying who their market is, what they're doing. It's as clear as day. Like, and then the blogs, the website, the messaging, the imagery, everything kind of supports one another. So there's nothing that falls through the cracks as far as like, well, I went to their website and they say they're specialists. I've seen a lot of LAs do this, where they say, hey, they're really a generalist, but they're saying in their messaging, it doesn't match what they actually put on their website. They say, we specialize in, and they name every type of project imaginable, right? And then on their website, they only show high-end residential. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, so that's what I feel like has been key for us, is like actually just making it all cohesive so that it feels authentic when you go there. You feel like, wow, these guys really are talking the talk, walking the walk, And then just, I think, identifying patterns and building a reputation that, proof of concept, now that we have some really great rooftops, like all of our best stuff right now is like not able to be photographed yet or in construction. So it's like, next level for us will probably be in the next year or two, where we can actually display even better projects that are outside of Utah. So that's been one of the other benefits is now we've, I didn't think or really want, I was kind of scared of a national presence, but now I feel like two of our best projects are on the East Coast. You know, we've got a couple projects in the Midwest. Those clients, for whatever reason, maybe because we're outside and they found us, they perceive us as the sexier, cooler firm willing to pay us a premium because we're not a local guy, you know? And so, and also I think we're able to get higher fees. And now that we have proof of concept with even getting paid higher fees on this, like, let's say 3 to 5X, is now it's like, well, we can prove that in my own mind. I can prove that we're getting paid this. So now our local clients who usually pay us a lot less than that, just because of the market we're in, and maybe their perception that we're just the local, we're still a local, even though we're an expert. Being the local and outside of your market, of their market, I think really helps enhance their view of you for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So now it's allowed us to get higher fees in the local market too, you know, because we have that confidence. So did I name enough?
Oh, that was cool.
Enough concept?
I think it's cool. That's cool. One thing I'm interested in is you do a bit of value-based pricing. Give us a bit of a rundown on you know how you moved into that and anything that's at a high level worth sharing.
So that was, I would say, probably one of the other pivotal things that we implemented that you guys actually talked about. I remember you all would talk about, you know, pricing options and things. And for me, I couldn't wrap my mind around it completely until I saw Blair Enns' book. Do you know Blair Enns? Have you heard of him?
Yes.
Pricing. Yeah. He's got a couple books out, but one of them was, I think it's called Pricing Creativity. And what he did was just break it down in a way, it was more of a mindset change than it was like, this is how you do it. But he basically said, keep your proposals to one page. Proposals are the words that come out of your mouth. Yep. Agreements are more of the contractual. But I always flipped it and just thought proposal and agreement were the same, you know? So when I was trying to put pricing together as options, it felt like crap. I got to create this checklist and each item. And felt like I had to create maybe 2 or 3 different agreements that I would call proposals. And it just felt too complicated. So then he's like, stick it to one page, try and get money on the table early and have that conversation before you get off the phone of that first conversation. Yep. That way you have confidence going, okay, we're going to specify a range. We're going to be anywhere from 5,000 to 100,000. Are you good if we come back with some proposal options, some pricing options in that range? And, you know, that way if they have any concerns like, oh, whoa, that's way higher than I thought, or, you know, or sounds great, then you have the confidence kind of going into it. So anyway, we played around with that 3-column idea of 3 options. And I wouldn't say we're doing truly value-based pricing yet, even now, but it's still kind of like, but the mindset is going into it. It's like, what this allows us to do is the architect or, you know, the developer now is the question isn't, should we work with them? It's how should we work with them? Yep. And then also it just allows us to break out our scope of services, and it gives us just more flexibility, and also them too. It's not the ultimatum option of here's the price, take it or leave it. It's, well, we could engage them at these various levels. And this is where Jonathan Stark was pivotal in. He puts forth, he had a 5-page template proposal that was just a free download that was helpful in us in kind of like some of the before and after of that 1-page pricing of setting goals, having a value conversation beforehand, understanding that, you know, what are success metrics of the clients? What do they want? To me, the pricing, the options allows us to put that, you know, to have more confidence, I think, and say, okay, what if we were to actually just deliver something way out of there? You can anchor them high with the highest option and throw something like high to this, you know, pie in the sky kind of idea, knowing they're probably not going to take it. And we're leading them more to the middle. But it just, what I realized in doing those is like, I still feel like I'm leaving money on the table. Yeah. You know, even after getting higher fees, I'm like, sometimes they have less pushback. And I think you even told me this years ago. They're like, you don't want to get every proposal. If you're getting every proposal, you're probably pricing too low. You know, so some of that pushback, but I think, so with that, I guess the goals, to me, setting the goals up front, understanding what the clients really want, building that trust first, that to me is, if you get that right, the money almost becomes secondary. The price, because if you can show that, hey, we really have your best interest, we're not here to just make a ton of money on a fee. This value should be, the value we bring should be way higher than the fee. And if they can see that, because they can see you can solve the big problems they have, especially when all the messaging, the imagery, everything's congruent, it's like you're clearly seen, and they can't find any other options that are rooftop amenity experts. Their perception of you, I think, is the biggest key of is changing. If you can change that, then it doesn't matter how you perceive yourself, it's how they perceive you, right? So if they perceive you as an expert, like you said, even if you say we're the expert, and that just means we know just a little bit more than you, and that perception is they're willing to pay you a little more because they perceive you as that, it's gold, you know.
And it's value.
So it's been,
so what you're saying is we come in, because I think what's changed with you is the value, you not only the fact you specialize, but it's really the value you can bring to a developer. And yes, we're the most expensive. Yeah, we're more expensive than other guys. And if you just want the cheapest, then I'm not your guy. But if you want the best value, if you want, here's what we can do to your project, right? Here's your project here. And if we come in, we can add this to it, right? We can add this to it because we know things other people don't know. We know how to do things. We know tricks. We know all sorts of things that other people don't know, which means we're able to add way more to your project in terms of value to you. Yes, you pay us a bit more, but you pay us, you might pay us that instead of that. But what you're getting is, instead of getting that, you're getting that. And so, so your fee becomes irrelevant when you can explain the unique value. And when you start talking about that type of value, I imagine you're the only one having that type of conversation. And so therefore you're incomparable. And that's, the developer's thinking to himself, I've got this guy here who he's in a way, he's more of a profit partner. The value he's bringing to this is going to add value to us from a profitable point of view. And he's able to articulate that. He is more expensive, but who cares? I mean, it's safer dealing with a guy who knows, if he can add that much value to our project, that's a safer option for us than getting someone in who's, just giving us a skinny fee. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to sell these things, we're trying to sell these things and we need them to be special. And this guy comes in and does special projects, and he knows what's special, and he knows what sells, and he knows what rents, and he just gets it. He gets us. So he's the safe option. Ironically, he's the safe option. Well, even though he's the most expensive, but he's the safe option. Yeah. He's the best option. We're going to get more from him. Anyway, that's my little rant. But brilliant.
You're right on.
Yeah. And I think that's it. And particularly if you're dealing with developers, you have to think like they're thinking. You can't come in as an architect who's used to going in and sharpening his pencil or a landscape architect who's used to sharpening their pencil every 5 minutes. Thereafter, their goals need to be your goals need to be in line with their goals, which is, we're coming in to help you make more money and reduce your risk on this expensive thing.
Well, what's ironic about that is there's been actually developers that actually told us this, but I was starting to realize it. So because of our niche, they don't quite know how to categorize us. Okay. It's like rooftop amenity experts.
Yeah.
Are you guys landscape architects or designers, interior? Do you do all of it? Yeah. And so I used to say, yeah, we're landscape architects. And then it would almost be like the air goes out of the room because they realize, oh, wait, we're just like the other guys then, but you do rooftops, Yeah. I even had one guy who actually is one of our best clients. He was like, I get it now. Yeah. Like that's your thing is the rooftop, but you're a landscape architect. And I was like, oh crap, we probably lost this deal. Yeah. And we ended up getting, but I've noticed now, I don't say I'm a landscape architect. I've kind of omitted that. Yes, we work in the industry of landscape architecture. That's just a big, broad category, but it's rooftop amenity specialist. And yes, now if they ever ask, are you guys landscape architects? I say, hey, yes, we actually have landscape architects on staff that are expert in it. I used to identify so much with my industry. Now it's like, I never get the landscape questions. It's, wow, you guys do really cool work. You say we work on rooftops. We design resorts on rooftops for large apartments. They're like, That's cool. You know, whoever.
Yeah.
You can run into someone at the bank. They ask me when I bring checks in, what do you do? And I'm like, you ever been to a cool resort? You know, they're like, yeah, we put those on rooftops for large apartments. They're like, oh, that's something, you must have the most fun job. You know, it's like, it's just such a mind shift even I've had to make. And I think that's a lot of times
Yes.
we identify with what we go to school, we put all this work in and we say, I have to identify as an architect or a landscape architect or whatever. But it's like, no,
Yes.
you don't want to be identified as that because then you're lumped back into the vanilla. And then that's where they go, we want to price shop you because you're just like everyone else, right? It's like that pyramid that you've outlined in the past of like trying to get up to that kind of rock star status or
Right.
brand name. Like that's where we want to be.
Yeah.
And that's where we're starting to be, you know?
And what you've done effectively by doing that, when you can change, well, the good analogy is, you know, oh, look, can you beat Rafael Nadal? Well, yes, if I pick the sport and I pick the rules, you know, and I pick the time and I pick the place, you know, we'll play a game that I can beat him in. And what you're doing is exactly, you're changing it's not landscape architect because there's 1,000 competitors and some of them are quite good. You've sort of created, you've created a new category. You're now number one. You're number one in a category of one. You've now got a monopoly. In some respects, because no one else is saying what you're saying. If they buy into your cool story, they only have one option. You know, if they buy into that and go, that's cool, we want one of those, let's go and get 3 quotes. They can't get 3 quotes for what you've just described. There's only one guy in town. You know, you've now got a monopoly. And now it's a question of, do we go down that road or do we go down just, you know, do we just get something, a normal commodity rooftop thing, which doesn't actually excite me and probably won't excite our tenants? We better wrap this up. I've got someone else on the line, but hey, Brandon, thank you so much. You've shared a lot of, I hope a lot of people have taken a lot of nuggets from this. And if you need to listen to this interview 2 or 3 times, you'd be very smart to do it.
Yeah, well, hey, always a pleasure, Richard. Keep up all the good work you're doing.
Thank you.